Kyle, a 22-year-old man, is a distant cousin. He's actually the child of my 19-year-old stepdad's cousin. I've only really attended the occasional family gathering, nothing too frequent. Although we haven't seen one another in a while, we did a few months ago at a wedding. He was drunk and persistently making out with me, telling me how attractive I was and how much he wanted to know more about me. He followed me all day long, despite my best efforts to ignore him and roll my eyes. He kept texting me after I gave him my number later on. When I voiced my complaints to my stepdad, he dismissed me. He was only inspired to act more outrageously by the fact that some people found it endearing or humorous. After a few days, he began messaging me and sending me offensive pictures. Even worse, I would get taunted by guests at the wedding as if it were a big joke. A month or two later, I was at my breaking point. My family was making fun of Kyle and me in the same group chat, so I sent some offensive pictures of myself to everyone who made fun of me. Photos of Kyle, his parents who brought him up to be this awful person, Kyle's selections, Thean who thought we would make a nice pair, plus a text full of treasure. My stepfather even got a printed photo for his pillow. It's amazing how many folks I was able to locate through phone numbers and group conversations on different social media platforms. A few family members have chastised me for violating Kyle's privacy by emailing them improper images of him. But his younger relatives have started making fun of him online with memes like when there's a family reunion and you can't decide which of your step-cousins to sleep with, or with altered photos of him that have a little leaf concealing some of his features. Despite my attempts to block him, he persists in making fictitious profiles and reaching out to me on various social media platforms. I was just tired of the taunting, the comments from people making fun of me, and him beating me down. I've already told him off for hitting on me, just to have him respond, "If you had a taste, you would like it." It was exhausting. I shut off my phone and went about my day since I started to dread the phone message sounds. Sending proof to everyone, I know is harsh, but it silenced their criticism about how we should go out and how I should give Kyle a chance. Indeed, Kyle has ceased to text me. When my cousins learned about it, they began to tease him. To further irritate him, his stepbrother began making fun of him and modified the wake-up call to "What are you doing, stepbro?" On my voicemail, Kyle did go on a tirade about how much of a witch I was and how I had wrecked him. Do I seem foolish here? Not the fool. Strange how everyone finds his actions adorable and humorous, until you start threatening them, that is. Harassment isn't humorous the way Kyle handled you, and he has to learn about consent. But I thought your reaction to their support of his actions was excellent. Perhaps it will cause them to reconsider it in the future. Are you an idiot for what you just said? Perhaps, but sometimes that's the only way to connect with others. In any case, I appreciate how you responded to their nagging. Not the fool. He ignored your attempts to get him to quit. Your stepfather didn't stop when you tried to get him to stop. Your family should have stopped them when you called out to them, but they didn't. You determined to find out how they felt if they were given the same treatment because no one was listening to you. They shouldn't be offended if they think his actions are appropriate in the same way. I apologize for not standing by your side during this, and I can appreciate how frustrated you are. Though it may not be widely held, in this case, everyone is the moron. Would you not have been able to demonstrate to parents in private just how badly their son behaved? The police, what say you? Simply placing question marks in it, ignoring it, and changing phone numbers. You claim to have discussed it with your stepfather, but he dismissed it. Probably because your stepdad has nothing to do with his cousin's child and you wanted to speak with Kyle's parents. It is not acceptable, in my opinion, to share someone else's images, regardless of whether they were supplied with permission. Never. I'm not on board. They were making fun of her and not taking her seriously. The fool is not the OP. When you're the recipient, it's endearing and humorous, but when they're not, it becomes inappropriate and disgusting. They seem a little hypocritical. Although it is improper, I don't feel too sorry for individuals who support or send these kinds of pictures. I am a 20-year-old male youngster, or at least that's what I believed. But I didn't realize I had a sister until a little over a year ago. My name is Lucy. According to the account, my mother chose to have her child adopted at birth when she became pregnant while still a college student and her first partner was unable to provide for her. I was never informed, but my father knew this. Anyway, she got in touch with our mother, or mine, approximately a year ago. They have a good rapport, stay in touch, and occasionally go out to lunch. This past year, Lucy also showed up to a few of our family get-togethers. I get along well with her too, but we're not friends because we're not the same person. Thus, I suppose I consider her to be a family friend or acquaintance. It's a little strange because, although I am aware of our strong kinship, she doesn't feel like family. If that makes sense. Alright, so that's the history. Let's move on to the problem. On my mother's side, both of my grandparents passed away a few years ago. They bequeathed their inheritance to me. My mother was their only child and I am their only grandchild. My parents and I were aware of this before to their demise since they included this in their will. My parents were okay with the arrangement since they are financially secure. My mom is a nurse and my dad is a doctor. When I received the money on my 20th birthday, I was shocked to see that it was significantly more than I had anticipated, roughly $6 million. I genuinely don't want friends or anybody else to know, which is why I can't discuss this with them in an unbiased way. That being said, my mother requested me to give Lucy the money a few weeks ago when she sat me down. Here's the problem, though. As I mentioned earlier, Lucy is more of an acquaintance to me. Although I am aware that we are connected by blood, I don't really feel that I have enough of a bond with her to justify giving her that much money, or any money at all, really. I told my mother about it, and she wasn't too pleased with my response. She thinks I'm being really egotistical and that Lucy, who is still in college and in debt, would really benefit from this money. This is why I believe I may be the fool. That isn't really anything I view as a problem. First of all, family, in my opinion, is not so much about genetics as it is about having someone feel like family. Second, even though my grandparents never met Lucy, they were aware of her existence and decided to give everything to me. Besides, Lucy was adopted at birth by what appear to be two wonderful people, an accountant and a teacher, so it's not like she was raised in poverty or anything. P.S. I have no intention of hoarding the cash. This year, I'm attending law school, and when I graduate, I want to use that money to launch my own legal practice. So proceed to evaluate me. Please, am I being a self-centered fool here, or am I right to believe that a person's blood relationship is no reason to make a claim? Not the fool. Lucy's existence was known to your grandparents, who decided not to leave her any inheritance. Since she was officially adopted, your grandparents probably didn't see the need for it. Furthermore, it appears that Mother knew about Lucy's existence all along but hasn't taken any action until recently. I'm curious as to whether the grandparents gave OP the money directly in order to prevent their daughter from giving part of it to Lucy. Not the fool. Your mother should pay whatever your mother believes your half-sister is due if she feels she is owed anything. You are not to blame for that. Again, it's not your fault. In addition, I sincerely hope that the funds are in an account that you alone can access. If your mother were to take it from you, I would despise it. Your mother is acting selfishly, if anyone is. She is attempting to deprive you of what was freely given to you by making you divide the funds with her daughter, whom she abandoned at birth. The fool is your mother. Here, there are no fools. You and your mother should talk about this. Your mother's request seems reasonable. She gave up one child and now understands that, despite her initial hopes, the child is not necessarily better off for being given up, at least not financially, especially if her parents forced her to choose adoption. Not an unusual occurrence. It makes sense that she feels bad about the child not receiving anything because the parents who forced her into adoption decided not to include the child in the will. 34 is my age. I severed ties with my sister a decade ago following her infidelity with my then-fiancé. They didn't disclose the nature of the 2-year romance until I caught them. Pretending it was the product of a one-night encounter, she was pregnant. They both understood that if I found out, I would never forgive them. My ex claims that they thought I would like being an aunt and that it would be simpler to carry on my back if I was preoccupied with the infant. In the end, they were married and had 2 children. After that, my sister was in a vehicle accident 3 years prior and sustained injuries that changed her life. My parents offered to take care of her full-time. She will never be able to take care of herself, unfortunately. After a year or so, my former spouse passed away. The children went to his parents, and my parents took on the role of my sister's guardians. They began hinting a few months ago that they wanted me to take over once they left. Then, a month ago, I received a call from my parents asking to meet. They expressed concern about what would happen to her when they are gone, or even if they are unable to care for her in a few years. They asked if I would be able to take care of her either by personally caring for her or by placing her in a facility and seeing to it that she is taken care of. I told them no, that they had to find another solution, but that I would never do anything for her ever again, and that didn't alter even when she was incapacitated. They first took it well, but a week ago, when I hadn't called to tell them I was changing my mind, they said I was the fool for not doing it for them. If nothing else, I should have done it to give them peace of mind, as even after what she did, she is still their daughter and is incapable of standing up for herself. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. She was never sorry after cheating. You would never have seen her again if she hadn't been involved in an accident. It sounds like there is money available if your parents are asking you to make sure she is cared for in a facility. They ought to establish a trust or locate a friend of your sister to take charge of things. It's not necessary to drag you inside. Not the fool. I'll even remark that it's not appropriate for your parents to do this. Their desire for your sister's best interests is not wrong, but it is wrong of them to use guilt to make you take care of someone you detest. Though I'm sure they would prefer it if their 2 kids got along better, it is just not the reality. It may not ever come to pass. It's okay if you couldn't move over that terrible betrayal. Furthermore, taking care of someone full-time is no joke. It is not a given that you would look after your sister, even if you got along well with her. Many would, of course, but I don't think it's terrible for anyone to want to hold on to their own life rather than giving it all up for someone else. Here, there are no fools. If they ask, you have the option to decline. That would still be a huge lifetime obligation even if she were wonderful. They offer care homes for individuals. Your parents ought to set that up right now rather than delaying it. They ought to. At least add her to the waiting list. We've been dating for approximately 2.5 years. I'm a 24-year-old female, and my boyfriend is a 27-year-old. We are a happy couple that share a home. I was pursuing a science degree at the time we met, hoping to work as a researcher and perform significant work in the future. My partner has been working and continues to work, but despite his desire for a better career, he is not interested in attending college or university since he does not want to obtain the necessary credentials. When global difficulties struck, I lost my part-time job, became despondent, and started studying at home. I decided to give up on studying that year and conceded defeat. I took a full-time work because I was unable to find a part-time job and could no longer afford it. I felt that it was necessary to start making some money again in order to save money and have a safety net for when I decide to go back to school. My partner made the decision to enlist in the military a few months ago while considering his job alternatives. He has submitted an application and is presently awaiting the start of the hiring procedure. He recommends that in order for me to move around and live with him while he accomplishes his goals in the military, that is, so that we might eventually establish a family and live side by side, he would prefer that I pursue a different professional path and obtain a position that is less specialized and more widely needed. I've made it clear that I have no intention of changing careers. We've discussed the potential of me staying at home with the kids and pursuing my aspirations while he's in the military, but I wouldn't be content raising them all by myself because he'd be gone for 99% of the time and juggling a career. I feel like I would be raising my kids alone in this scenario, yet he gets irritated when I express that. I feel like I'm being told to give up on my aspirations and follow him around if I want to be with him. When it comes to children, he also gives me the impression that time is running out and that it will be too late for me to finish my studies and land the job I desire. Since my ambitions came before his, should I be more prepared to let them go? Never, ever alter your aspirations in life for anyone else. Sure, adjust, but don't give up entirely. Why not give up his military career and be with you? It cuts both ways, in a way. Consider this relationship carefully. You might be able to work it out. But sometimes it's best to start fresh. Don't let your education slip away. Not wanting a formal education, he is enlisting in the military at the age of 27, but if you do, he still feels inadequate. As a result, he devises the ideal substitute for crushing your goals, dangling a carrot of family in front of you. His ultimate objective is for you to not receive an education that prepares you for a lucrative profession. Remember that always. This is exactly how it begins. All of this is manipulative bullshit from an insecure male. Before you know it, a 40-year-old woman will be blogging on social media about how she sacrificed her aspirations and her existence to make room for a man who eventually assumed full financial responsibility. She currently has 3 children in a miserable marriage, no savings, and no employable skills. This is a common tale of people who are utterly immobile and desperate for a divorce. Consider it. Negotiating your independence is not an option. My sister, who is 28 years old, attended a school in a town that is well liked by several residents of our area. Our parents purchased a nearby condo as a result. It is home to a hotel that is well known for hosting weddings. We would go to this hotel on a regular basis and gradually grew to love it. I had never thought about getting married there until 3 years ago, when I took my now 25-year-old fiancée on her first holiday. We used to gaze at the rooms and discuss the possibility of getting married there in the future. I also knew my sister enjoyed the location, but as far as I knew, she had never mentioned that she would prefer to get married there. In October of this year, my sister got engaged to her current fiancé, 28. They ultimately chose to plan their wedding at a stunning location very adjacent to our city. In May, as their preparations were taking shape, I proposed to my fiancé. After looking at a few potential locations, we decided to check out the hotel we were familiar with from our trips. We conducted due diligence, negotiated with suppliers, and arranged a face-to-face meeting with our parents to seal the contract. Then my sister suddenly went into full-blown tantrum mode. She went to my mother and expressed her desire to prevent our marriage from taking place there. She says that this has always been her ideal wedding and that she won't be able to watch her brother be married there. She was crying uncontrollably and requesting that we postpone our plans. When we attempted to speak with her on the phone, she mentioned how much the hotel meant to her because she attended school nearby and had more memories there than we realized. She was furious, and she couldn't believe we would even think about investigating it. It was also revealed to us that her fiancé had no desire to tie the knot at the hotel. We've discussed the venue in front of my sister several times over the last 2 months, and we've never heard any worries. But even after 2 days, she's still upset that we didn't call off our plans. My parents proposed to call off her wedding so she may have it at the hotel. When she brought this up to her fiancé, he continued to express his desire to not get married there. My parents, my fiancé, and I then held our last meeting to finalize our wedding plans before the trip, following a week of continuous disagreement. It seems that my sister spied on the meeting using the camera system in my parents' home. At this point, I think I might be the moron. She went over the edge once more when she heard me say, "I have little sympathy for my sister at this point." My fiancé's mother accused her of tricking me into holding our wedding here, claiming that my brother would never care this much. Jump to last night, when we found out that she feels her immediate family no longer values her or her sentiments, and she is threatening to move across the nation with her fiancé. Am I the foolish one? Not the fool. I don't want to give the wrong impression, but your sister seems to be having problems. It's strange that she would care so much, as if suddenly. It's concerning that she would cry uncontrollably and spy on you from a wedding venue. You might not like what you hear if you plan to spy on someone. It seems like sister is far too young to be getting married. It's terrifying how immature her emotions are. It's absurd that she would threaten to relocate across the nation since her family no longer seems to care about her sentiments. Everything about this is strange. She might find out that her wedding may be called off if she can't get her act together and her fiancé decides she's insane.